Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the CyberPro podcast. Industry leaders share their insights. It's about 10 minutes or less because hackers never sleep. Today, we have a return offender. Ean Myers is on. We're super excited. For everyone before this, if you haven't, you need to go back and watch. He was our 100th podcast guest. Yeah, we had the bells and the whistles and all that fun stuff. And now we're over 300.
Amazing.
I know. So thank you so much for being on the podcast again.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to be here. I've kind of gone off on a new journey, and I was actually saying in the pre-show, I'm a talker, so this is like the most stressful podcast that I'll do in a good way because I have to be concise and quick. So I'm ready. I've practiced. I think I'm there.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue because I know that last time we talked, you were doing something different, and now you're on this really cool new journey. Tell us who you are and why you're awesome.
Why I'm awesome? Well, I think that's subjective, but I like to think I'm okay. Yeah, so my name's Ean Myer. I am a hacker educator and owner of a consulting firm called Industrial. And one of the big things that we do is tabletop exercises and consulting around, what do you do when the bad day happens? And it's mostly about education in a way that focuses companies not just on the technical pieces, but brings all the leadership together, focuses on what attackers might see through OSINT, et cetera, so they know that it's real. It's not some James Bond kind of exercise, some nation state doing whatever. It's no, some teenager in some other country can find this about your company and then leverage it against you. Let's run that in the tabletop. And then also making sure that it's not, again, just technical. It's the legal teams, it's the social media teams, it's the other communications teams that are often part of the cleanup long after the technical issues have been resolved. So building tabletop exercises like that really, really helps serve that need.
I'm going to jump to a future question and bring that right in because you started talking about the tabletop side. I'd love to have you share a real world story about a tabletop and how it's benefited one of your customers or one of the organizations that you work with.
Sure. So I've done several tabletop exercises, and some of these are under NDA, so I'm thinking a little bit here. But one of the really interesting things that happened, I was dealing with a company that does manufacturing. And I can't say what type of manufacturing or what sector, but let's just say manufacturing. And they had a warehouse for distribution. And one of the things that they were completely unprepared for, and there were some people in the tabletop that were screaming at the heavens, like, no, we've tried to tell people this. I went and did research and found multiple PR Newswire articles about the really cool, super awesome, automated, robotic warehouse distribution system they had, and what models and versions and how cool it was that it was deployed, and was able to start telling them about some of these vulnerabilities that exist in the system. And some of the board and the people there were absolutely shocked that I even knew that existed. And it caused them to really think about, wait a minute, we're thinking about phishing emails, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. We're not thinking about this weird black box over here that's half prototype that we're in a partnership with, where exceptions to all kinds of policies are being made for people showing up on site and touching it and working with it and all this different stuff. And then you had the one person go, well, that would never happen. How would they even know it was there? And I pull up the PR Newswire article, and then I pull up another article about not the type of robotic system they have, but the automation systems that are very close to it being a subject of supply chain attacks. And the whole room kind of went silent and said, oh my gosh, we haven't even thought about that risk. So, looking forward thinking at the bleeding edge of what people are doing, they often don't understand the risk that lives there.
I love it. So let's pivot back. What recent evolutions have you noticed in the cybersecurity landscape?
Right. Again, I could kind of take that example and harp on AI, but I think that's kind of beat to death. Everyone knows AI is interesting. And I also think there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt. There's a lot of snake oil. I think a couple major companies will emerge. They'll pair that with robotics, and then things will get really interesting. But I think where real evolution happens is incremental and slowly, and can be traced back to tiny steps. And the recent SEC and FTC changes about reporting guidelines, we are seeing actual evolution in how regulators actually think about breach reporting, not just big public companies, but lots of companies that never had to think about, if I have a breach, not only do I have to solve it, now I have to explain it to somebody else and why we even had it. And I think that's because of the workforce. The workforce is aging out, and the people that are now coming into leadership roles are more computer savvy. And they're saying these regulations need to change, and this is the reason we continue to have these problems. So I think that evolution regulation is really the one that's actually the most fascinating.
I love it. And I love that you kind of drove past the AI. A lot of people talk about that. I appreciate that. I saw your snake oil pillow in the background. I feel like you need the Terminator hand next to it so you can kind of, really highlight that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take this one step further then. Are there any emerging technologies or trends or even approaches that you just are super excited about?
I love this question, and I think I'm going to give you another curveball answer. Gen Z. I adore Gen Z, and I've got a lot of gray in my beard, and there's a lot of people that, like, when it was millennials, like, millennial, like that kind of thing. I adore how they have pushed back against the norms of overwork, not being paid, compensated, and trained for what they do, and just constantly getting this growing pile. And I think what that comes from is they've seen the previous generations, their parents, invest their entire lives and personality and time into these companies, only to see them treated like a commodity, like, oh, we're going to cut them for, whatever. And so that pendulum is swung. And the reason I think this is important to security is there used to be a culture, and it still exists, of you live, breathe, die security. If you're not working on a home lab, if you're not doing this, if you're not putting in 80 hours in SOC, how can you even call yourself security? And frankly, I think that's antithetical. You're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to catch everything you need to catch. And further than that, it's only enabling the individuals who would cut workforce to say, oh, we can cut these people. We don't need to train them because these others will just work harder. And they're pushing back. And I think in the end, that's going to give significantly better security outcomes because they'll be able to focus and, have work-life balance, have better mental health, and focus on a specialty instead of having to wear 100,000 hats. So that's what I'm excited for.
I love that answer. I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually working on my PhD in burnout.
I did think that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think that in and of itself, that answer is a driving force in some of my research. So appreciate you bringing that up. So we're at the end, right? This was quick and painless, but the fun question, last time we asked you your favorite piece of retro technology, but we want to know your favorite piece of current technology that makes you smile.
Oh, there's so many. Oh my gosh. I'm a maker by, just hobby and whatnot. And if you could see to the left of my office, there's a laser cutter, there's a 3D printer, there's, all this crazy stuff. I am super excited about the new industrial level type technologies that I can use in my home that are manufacturing technologies that didn't exist. I mean, literally down on the floor here, I don't have it up on a table right now, but I have a desktop CNC mill that I can cut PCBs, I can cut lock keys, I can do all this different stuff. And in the last couple of years, that technology has become cheaper, faster, easier to let anybody become a machinist and make, parts that can actually be sold. I think that is just incredible. It really opens up creativity and all kinds of stuff. So that's what I'm excited about.
Ean, thank you so much for once again being on the CyberPro podcast.
Well, no, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the CyberPro podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new podcasts and all of our cool bonus content.